The restaurant hummed with Friday night energy, but Marcus Chen felt nothing but the hollow ache of standing someone up, even if he was the one left waiting. The empty chair across from him mocked his optimism, the untouched wine glass reflected his foolishness, and somewhere between the third pitying glance from the waiter and his dying phone battery, the CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire realized that success meant absolutely nothing when you were eating alone. Marcus loosened his tie and signaled for the check. Another failed attempt at normalcy, another reminder that his carefully constructed life had room for everything except genuine connection. His assistant had set up the blind date 3 weeks ago with Claire, a lawyer friend of a friend who supposedly shared his love of obscure jazz and Italian neorealism films. They'd exchanged exactly 4 text messages, each more formal than the last, before she'd simply stopped responding that afternoon. He should have been in his penthouse right now, reviewing quarterly projections or finalizing the Singapore expansion. Instead, he'd put on his best suit, made a reservation at Lucia's, the kind of intimate spot where senators proposed and anniversaries were celebrated, and waited like a fool for someone who clearly had better plans. "Sir, we'll need the table soon for our 8 o'clock reservation," the waiter murmured apologetically. "But there's no rush. Take your time." Marcus nodded, reaching for his wallet, when a small voice cut through the ambient noise. "Mommy, my feet hurt." He glanced up to see a woman in her early 30s standing near the host stand, one hand gripping a little girl's shoulder, the other clutching a worn purse. The child couldn't have been more than 5, with cornrows adorned with colorful beads and a dinosaur backpack that seemed bigger than her entire torso. The woman, her mother, clearly, wore scrubs printed with cartoon characters and an expression of profound exhaustion that Marcus recognized from his own mirror on the worst days. "I know, baby. I know," the mother said softly, scanning the packed restaurant. "We'll find somewhere to sit, I promise." The host, a thin man with slicked hair and an unfortunate superiority complex, barely glanced at them. "Ma'am, as I explained, we're fully booked. Without a reservation. I understand that, but we've been walking for 40 minutes. My daughter just needs to sit for 10 minutes while I figure out where we can. There are benches outside." The dismissal in his tone made Marcus's jaw tighten. He'd heard that tone before, had been on the receiving end of it himself years ago when he was a scholarship kid trying to blend in at Princeton, when his threadbare jacket and scuffed shoes announced his otherness before he could even introduce himself. Marcus stood before he could talk himself out of it. "Actually, there's a seat here." 3 heads turned toward him, the host's eyebrows raised in surprise, the mother's eyes wide with uncertainty, and the little girl's face breaking into a gap-toothed smile that somehow pierced through the armor Marcus had spent 20 years building. "I have an extra chair," Marcus continued, gesturing to the empty seat across from him. "And I've already ordered too much food. If you'd like to join me, you're more than welcome." The mother hesitated, her hand instinctively protective on her daughter's shoulder. "That's very kind, but we couldn't impose." "You're not imposing. I'm Marcus." He offered his hand, noting the calluses on her palm when she shook it, the kind that came from real work, not golf clubs and gym equipment. "Jasmine. And this is Zoe." She studied his face, searching for ulterior motives, for the catch that experience had taught her always existed. Marcus kept his expression open, understanding her caution, respecting it even. Zoe solved the dilemma by climbing into the empty chair and sighing dramatically. "My feet are so happy now." Jasmine laughed despite herself, a sound like wind chimes that made something in Marcus's chest unknot. "Zoe, we can't just." "Please," Marcus said quietly. "I'd really appreciate the company." Something in his honesty must have resonated because Jasmine's shoulders relaxed incrementally. She slid into the booth beside her daughter, and Marcus noticed the way she positioned herself between Zoe and him, protective instinct overriding exhaustion. The waiter appeared, his earlier pity now replaced with poorly concealed confusion. Marcus ordered more appetizers, pasta dishes, tiramisu for the table, ignoring Jasmine's protests with a gentle insistence that she eventually surrendered to. "We were supposed to go to Chuck E. Cheese," Zoe announced, swinging her legs under the table. "But it closed down. Mommy said it moved to a new neighborhood." "It didn't move, baby," Jasmine corrected gently, pain flickering across her features. "It closed." Marcus understood the translation. Money was tight, promises were hard to keep, and this mother was doing everything she could with resources that never stretched far enough. "Well, This place doesn't have any games, Marcus said seriously to Zoe, but they do have the best breadsticks in the city. Want to try them? Zoe nodded enthusiastically, and as the food arrived, conversation flowed easier than Marcus had expected. He learned that Jasmine was a pediatric nurse working double shifts at St. Mary's, that Zoe loved dinosaurs more than princesses, because dinosaurs are real, even though they're gone now, and that they lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Dorchester where the heat only worked sometimes. Jasmine didn't offer these details as complaints or bids for sympathy. They emerged naturally, woven between Zoe's excited chatter about her kindergarten teacher and Jasmine's questions about Marcus's work, which he kept deliberately vague. I work with computers, he said, which was technically true and far less intimidating than, I founded a company that revolutionized cloud computing architecture and employs 14,000 people. That's cool, Zoe declared. Mommy says computers know everything. Not everything, Marcus replied, glancing at Jasmine. They don't know the important stuff. As they ate, Marcus watched Jasmine quietly pocket half her pasta, saw her slip extra breadsticks into her purse when she thought no one was looking. His heart constricted with recognition, not of poverty exactly, but of the mathematics of sacrifice, the way mothers everywhere performed daily alchemy, turning their own hunger into their children's fullness. Mommy saves food for later, Zoe explained helpfully. For breakfast. Zoe, Jasmine murmured, embarrassed color rising in her cheeks. Marcus pretended not to hear, signaling the waiter for takeout containers and ordering additional entrees, to go. When Jasmine tried to protest, he shook his head. My fridge is already full. Otherwise it'll just go to waste. The meal stretched into an hour, then two. Zoe fell asleep against her mother's shoulder, and in the quieter conversation that followed, Marcus learned the real story. Jasmine's ex-husband who'd disappeared when Zoe was 6 months old, the student loans from nursing school that would take decades to repay, the daycare costs that consumed half her income, and the dreams she'd deferred so completely she'd almost forgotten they existed. What did you want to be? Marcus asked. Before all of this, Jasmine looked at her sleeping daughter, and her smile was complicated, wistful and proud and tinged with grief for her younger self. A doctor. Pediatric oncologist, specifically. I wanted to save kids. She laughed softly. Now I'm just trying to save one. That's not just anything, Marcus said fiercely. That's everything. Their eyes met across the table, and Marcus felt something shift in his carefully ordered universe. Here was someone who'd given everything, expected nothing, and somehow maintained a grace that his world of quarterly earnings and market disruption had never cultivated. When the check came, Marcus handled it before Jasmine could even glance at the total. He walked them outside, where the October air had turned sharp, and Jasmine was shifting Zoe's weight, trying to figure out the bus schedule on her cracked phone screen. Let me call you a car, Marcus said. We're fine, really. Jasmine. He waited until she looked at him. Please, let someone help. Just this once. She nodded finally, and while they waited for the car, Marcus made a decision that would have horrified his board of directors and delighted the kid he'd been 25 years ago. He pulled out his wallet, extracted a business card, and wrote something on the back. This is my direct number. Call me Monday morning. I don't understand. I have a proposition. My company offers full medical benefits, tuition reimbursement, and on-site childcare. We're hiring for our IT help desk, and the hours are flexible. It's entry level, but it's a start. If you're interested, we can discuss it. Jasmine stared at the card like it might dissolve. Why would you do this? Marcus thought about Claire, who hadn't shown up. About the path not taken, the doors that had closed, and the strange providence that had put an empty chair at his table exactly when someone needed it. Because once, when I was 17 and applying to colleges I couldn't afford, a guidance counselor stayed late to help me with my applications. He didn't have to. I wasn't even in his caseload. But he saw something worth investing in. Marcus smiled. And because Zoe's right, dinosaurs are way cooler than princesses. The car arrived. Jasmine bundled Zoe inside, clutching the takeout bags and business card like treasures. Before closing the door, she leaned out. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing us. As the car disappeared into Friday night traffic, Marcus stood on the sidewalk, his expensive suit and empty evening transformed into something that felt remarkably like purpose. He'd built an empire from code and ambition, but standing there in the October cold, he realized he'd been starving for exactly this. The possibility that success might mean something beyond the numbers, that his carefully constructed life might have room for connection after all. His phone buzzed with emails demanding attention, markets that never slept, decisions that couldn't wait. Marcus silenced it all and started walking, his own feet carrying him home through streets that suddenly seemed less lonely, under stars that had always been there, waiting for him to finally look up. Monday morning, his assistant would be very confused by his instructions. But tonight, for the first time in years, Marcus Chen felt like he'd actually shown up for something that mattered. The empty chair had been filled after all, just not the way he'd expected. And sometimes, he thought, that's exactly how life saves you.